Hello, everybody. So we're going to talk about, even though the clever title says Ready Tester 1, we're going to talk a little bit about career development. I have been working in the industry for about 10 years, and it's amazing to me how many times we end up in places where we don't have, as testers, a clear path forward. We land in testing, we get recruited from some other department, or we're brand new to it, and then we can't see like how a career path develops. It's like, wow, I've got a career, now what do I do with it? So this talk came about because of the conversations I've had around career development and various other topics related to it. So a little bit about me. I am working for Unity Technologies. If you don't know what Unity is, how many people know about Pokemon Go? Yeah, okay. So we were the game engine that let them develop that game. And that's what Unity Technology is. I also work for Ministry of Testing as a editor, a content editor. And that's been about a 2-year thing and very cool, and it means I get to interact with a lot of you, whether you know it or not, because if you read anything off of ministryoftesting.com, I've probably had a hand in editing that to make it look really good. So, my contact information, and if you have any questions later, feel free to contact me. So these are the usual career paths for developers, most of the time. It's what ends up happening. You end up being a tester, and then as you get better and better at it and you gain skills, someone goes, you should be a developer, or you should be a project manager, or you should go into management. Why can't I just be a tester? Why can't I just stay in testing? It's a big problem, I think, because companies don't know what to do with people that are really good at testing, so then they find other places to put them as a means of promotion or career development that aren't available to testers. So, this conversation about career and career development actually started with a different conversation, one that happened on Twitter about non-technical and how testers have kind of been tagged with this non-technical whatever it is. It's very confusing to me because when I came from customer service, I have all the same skill sets that I use in testing, but I was called technical. I was a technical worker in customer service. And then I moved to testing, and suddenly I'm not technical. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. So then there's this confusion of, what does technical mean for a tester? Does it mean we have to know code? No, I don't think so, but a lot of people do equate that. If you're not a technical tester unless you know how to code, unless you know how to automate. That's not true. You all have so many skills that let you do so many different things, and people have, and businesses have undervalued that, unfortunately. So I went about trying to figure out exactly what skills are technical, what skills do I have that are technical, what skills require code, and how much of that is in my day-to-day job. And let me tell you, there's a lot of skills we have that are a combination of all kinds of things that are technical, but don't need code. So, I think we ourselves undervalue ourselves when we don't know code or don't know a lot about code. So this is the Twitter. That QR code will actually link you to the conversation. And this is the tweets I asked. And I've always been interested in how people respond to this because conversations I've even had with other testers, they're like, well, I don't code, so I'm not technical. And I'm like, no. Totally not the case. You are very technical. You know how to test that probably better than any software engineer that wrote the code. Don't undervalue what you do. So anyway, technical purposes. So I started thinking about this. I started thinking about technical versus non-technical. What does this mean? What skills do I have? And then one day, I was working on a project, and we were needing to hire more testers for this project. And the manager came to me and goes, Melissa, I want more testers like you. How do I get that? Okay, I'm like me. I'm unique. So, but I said, I'll try to write down what I know, and we'll see, where things fall in levels. Like, what level of tester do you need? What would make sense for us to hire? Like, what skill sets do they need? So I started writing these things down. Started thinking about it. Like, what are technical skills? What do we need? What do we have? What are we taking for granted that we need? So I wrote things down, and I initially came up with what I call 3 levels. I like to turn everything into a game. So suddenly, I'm going, what would the character sheet of a tester look like? Like if I was writing up what a gnome or a wizard or whatever would be in a game, like what would that character sheet look like if I wanted to make a tester? So I was like, okay. So I started writing up these different levels, and I started with 3, and then I was like, well, wait, there's more stuff. And then I ended up with 5, and then I kind of went crazy with it, and this is a QR code to the test sheets, but go ahead and do that. That's a story too. Anyway, so I started making levels, right? And then I was like, well, what can I equate this to? And this LARP. So I started really thinking about it. Like, what can, I've played games for a really long time. LARP is live action role play. Is anyone familiar with that? Oh, yay. Okay, good. So this is like D&D, and you make a character, except for you get up and walk around with it, and you don't stay at a table. That's the shortest version of that. I've played it for a long period of time, and I played it as a storyteller or a GM for a long period of time, where I was organizing large groups of people with stories and such, and I had to understand their character sheets. So in a way, I was managing a bunch of people, and I didn't even realize it. And then later when I became a lead, I'm like, this is like running a game. I don't know that a lot of people would equate that, but I did. And I was like, so what skills do I need that they need that I need to help them find? Because part of your job as a storyteller or a manager is to understand what people have and where people can go with it and point them in the right direction. So this gave me even more fuel to come up with a character sheet. So I came up with a career character sheet for a tester, specifically for a tester. I'm sure this could work for other roles, but I really geared towards, well, like, what would a tester have? So I have all these different levels. I have like whether or not you're a basic or intermediate and proficient, and then a little column for notes on the side or place you can say, oh, I want to learn this or add more to it. And then I was like, well, this isn't all. This is like basic stuff. Like this is everything, testers should know. It's kind of like picking an elf, right? You get all the basic classes and you build that character out, and then you get to pick a career for the elf, and they're like a rogue or a wizard or a druid or whatever. And I'm like, wait, I don't have my specializations. There are so many specializations in testing, so many out there. And I'm like, I started thinking about it. So then I came up with an advanced character sheet where I have all the specializations listed out. So some of these here you'll see like data. Like you can just test data. You can specialize in testing data. That's amazing. I don't know that maybe 10 years ago you could have just specialized in testing one thing. Mobile is extensive. Used to be that you would just test mobile applications. Now you can test like specific mobile applications in specific areas on specific regions. It's crazy. The services, they've gotten so complex now that you can really narrow down on, I'm only testing ads on iPhones. That's how specialized some of this mobile testing can be. I'm only testing how to track data or how to track users through iPhone applications. That's the kind of testing you can actually do. You can combine things. You can look at performance testing, load testing, security, accessibility, usability. So I'm saying all these ility words. Well, those are all specializations you can start learning now. And this is how you can differentiate your career and stay in testing. You start learning a specialization. It may require automation. It may require you to learn some code. It may not. It may require you to learn a tool that would help you navigate and learn more and test that particular area of the software. So one of the things I pointed out earlier was coming up with basic skill sets, right? So some of the basic skill sets, core career skills that I think every tester needs, or every tester should work on, is this group right here. I have communication and research as two of the main big skills, because those are the things I think you absolutely have to have as a tester. You have to understand what communication is and how to communicate with people and how to use it and how many tools, and there's so many tools now that it just requires you to understand how you can actually communicate with somebody in a variety of different ways. Technical writing, project management, exploratory testing, command line usage. I don't know how many times being able to use a command line has actually saved my job. Because I knew how to set things up and tear them down via the command line. Only because I followed directions. You give me directions, I can do anything. So that right there gives you a huge advantage over someone that doesn't understand how to do that. So these are skills you can build up and keep going. These are the specializations I talked about. It's all over the place. There's a list of 10, 12 here, something like that. So these are the things that you can add to your skill sets, your tool bag, and this lets you expand your career and stay in testing, from my perspective. And you can add to this. You can also still, and it's not knocking any of the other paths forward, you can go into development, you can go into management. That's okay, if that's what you want to do. But if what you're wanting to do is to stay in testing, my suggestion is you find the gap, whatever gap your company has, and learn that skill. And then teach someone else. And then have them learn something else, and then have them teach someone else. And then start teaching each other different skill sets and helping each other out to find these specializations that you all can learn and use on the job. I don't think any job I've ever been on has been the same twice. Even for web pages and stuff like that, I've always had some different testing. I was testing APIs. I was testing the performance. I've tested search engines that I had to figure out how to test the performance of. Like, that gets into some really, very specific things. And it's all because I'm open to learning and moving forward and finding those skills and learning from my developers and coming up with a strategy. Super important. So, you're never lonely in a crowd. And you're probably all wondering, well, how do I get a hold of these skills? Well, they're out there. And we're going to help you do it right now. I'm going to tell you a little story, though. This is a link to a Postman tutorial. Danny Danton is from the UK. He knows Postman. He's now a Postman advocate. And I was using Postman to test some API, and I was having a problem. And he had this tutorial up. And I was like, hey, Danny, I'm having this particular problem. Can you help me out? He's sure. And it was like in the middle of the night in the UK. I'm like East Coast, and it's in the afternoon. And he responds, and I'm like, okay, all right. So we worked through a couple of code references, trying to get things to work. I was trying to get the test to skip if it ran out of resources to test something, and then move to the next day because it was a scheduling app. And he was like, I don't think it does that. I was like, well, no, I've gotten it to do this, but we're having, it's not quite asserting on the problem. He's like, okay. So back and forth. And then he figures it out. And I was like, perfect, it worked, great, thank you. And it is a result of knowing Danny via Twitter that I found an answer to a problem that I was having. So I was able to crowdsource my problem. You put it out there, you're like, hey, who knows this skill? Somebody's going to come up in your network, hopefully, and say, I know somebody that knows somebody to go ask that question, or you might know them directly. And that's what I recommend, crowdsourcing your skills. So you're never alone if you're in a crowd. You got to team up sometimes. You might be a lone tester out there alone, but you got to find your team. You got to find where you can find those skills. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to talk to your neighbor. When I say go, talk to your neighbor, find out what their favorite skill is, and then get their Twitter handle or their email or something, okay? Ready? Go. We'll do this real quick in a minute. Okay. Did everybody learn something? Did everybody learn a name or a skill or something? Okay. All right. Okay. Minute's up. Did you learn something new? Did you learn something about the person next to you? No? Yes? No? Melissa, this was a silly idea. Don't do it again. So it could be just that simple, right? Just asking the person next to you. The other thing you can do is get on the testing networks. Ministry of Testing has a great Slack channel set that you can get on, and they have specific topics for channels, or you can start one if it's not there. The other thing I like to do is get involved with Twitter. Twitter has a huge testing community, and if you're not already hooked in and developing your Twitter network, then I definitely suggest you do that. You know, Twitter can get a little crazy, so make sure you narrow it down. But look for folks on Twitter. These are my influencers, and these are the folks that I network with. And I have them all divided here by topic, because it's super important for me to know who knows what and who I can go ask. I don't have to know all this. This isn't just me. This is all of you. This is us in it together, learning stuff. So get out there and crowdsource what you need to know, or learn from somebody that learned from somebody else and pass that along. You don't feel like you have to be in this alone. That's the whole point. It's like hunting Easter eggs. That's what I like to think of it as. And there's more I could add to this list, but this is like the beginning of my list. This is the QR code to the article I wrote about crowdsourcing your network. So it is in English, but hopefully someday we'll be able to translate both. But hopefully this will be helpful in understanding what you can do about how to get a crowdsourced network started for learning purposes. This QR code is for Alan Richardson's Evil Tester. How many people know about Evil Tester? Some people. Okay. So Alan Richardson has a Patreon. I support it because he puts out all kinds of content, so much content. And it's super cheap. Like, if you just sponsor him for $1 a month, you get access to a ton of stuff that he talks about. And he has a huge career. So if you're not into books and you like content as it comes or something like that, if you want books, that's cool too. He makes a bunch of suggestions. But yeah, get hooked into his Patreon, and you'll learn a bunch of stuff there too. Another one, if you want to learn about more automation, this is a QR code to Angie Jones's Test Automation University. How many people know about that one? A few of you. Cool. All kinds of automation, API, Java, Selenium, you name it, it's up there, and it's growing by the day. So I suggest checking it out. It's totally free. This one is completely free. You just sign up, and you just go do the activities and the courses, and you can learn a ton. So really important there. This is a link to my GitHub. If you want the character sheets and these slides, that's where you're going to go to download all of that information and a whole bunch more notes and stories and things that I had to skip. But there is your link to that. And play with the character sheets. Do, if you want to try to use it for other roles, like see if you can make another one, use it as a model. Use it as a model for yourself to figure out what you know and what you need to improve on and get maybe ideas about what you can learn. They're not complete by any means. They're a framework for you to take it and run with, okay? So, any questions? Do we have any questions? Yeah, there's one out there.
Hi. Just a quick question. What do you think is the most lacking skill that the testers have normally, regardless communication?
Yeah. I think probably, that's a tough one, because I don't know that, like, if you're a tester, you're curious, you want to learn. So I think you can learn just about anything. So that, to me, seems pretty important, as long as you can learn. I don't know that I can come up with a lacking skill set, because I've never seen a tester not want to learn something. So.
But in the sense of, well, you think that it should be developed more, in the sense of which kind of skills are like underestimated, that should be promoted more.
That we should learn more of? Okay. If you don't know version control software, if you don't know how to use a command line, I think those are the two that I would recommend every tester learn, regardless of how much you want to learn code or not, because that'll give you access to a lot of things that you might not get access to. At least you know it. So that, to me, would be like the two important ones, I would say, to go with like a basic skill set that I kind of come across. I don't come across it very much anymore, but I do come across testers every now and then that don't know how to use version control. And I'm like, you might want to learn.
Hi.
Hi.
Yesterday, during the roundtable, actually, you gave some very interesting ideas about how to show for the developers that testing was very important, and this should be considered a very important activity during the software life cycle.
Yeah.
But when you consider the community in general, or even companies that they don't have a testing team or testers in general, how do you think that we could promote the idea that software testing has a career, has some skills, and has lots of work that has been done around it?
Yeah, that's a hard one too, because it requires like understanding how the company culture is set up to begin with and what they're doing and whether or not they even think about testing as a career. Because I've run into that where it's like, oh, we don't need testers, and then, like large companies like Microsoft and Yahoo will get rid of testers in a big swath, and then all of a sudden 2 years later they'll bring them back because they realize they cut like half their knowledge base. So we know a lot of things, and maybe we drink a lot, but we know a lot of things. So the companies, doing that kind of activity, that's hard. That's a hard problem to solve. And I think the way we can solve it is by visibility. Just making things visible, making what you know visible, making folks understand how much people understand how much you know and interact with the software and add value to being there and thinking about how they develop software. And that's hard too, but I think every step you take to make anything visible, whether it's test cases, test plans, how you test, how you approach testing, what you know about testing, that's important.
Hi, my question was, what is it that you do now in Unity, and how do you see your role evolving in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I started at Unity as a tech lead. I've recently been promoted to QA manager, and I am hiring other testers right now. So if you're interested, please contact me. My role is still mainly as a tester. Even though I do a lot of management, I'm in a lot of meetings, I'm still hands-on with the software. And my hope is that I'll stay that way to a certain extent, that I keep my hands in technology. Where I go after that, I don't know. Like, you know, the future is unwritten at this point. But my hope is that whatever happens, I can adapt and, you know, make a career and still be in software testing somehow.
Hello.
Hello.
The other day, we were having lunch with the team where I work, and we started talking about if anybody will be a tester. You know? And some people said that no, that you have to have some abilities, some cognitive abilities maybe, to be a tester. But others said that yes, everybody could be a tester. What do you think about that?
So I think anybody can do testing. A tester is somebody that does testing well. So there's a distinction. You're a professional. So you have learned and you have honed your craft and you're learning more. Somebody can do testing. Developers can do testing. Anybody can do testing, but doing it well and understanding how to approach risk and how to understand data sets and how to understand the software, and sometimes even that intuition, understanding, oh, I need to look at this over here because the last time we did something over here, it affected this. That's instinct that people don't develop unless you're a tester, I think. And you're testing all the time and you're using that skill all the time. But can people do testing at large? Sure. Are they going to do it well? That depends. Anyone else? Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Irving. I'm from Peru. My question is, what's your opinion about functional testing in the future? I'm asking about this topic because companies in South America requiring a lot of automators.
So were you specifically asking about manual testing or just testing in general?
Testing in general.
Testing in general, okay. So I don't think testing is going anywhere. I think there's going to be more automation, but I also think some of that automation will have to be checked manually and will have to be maintained. And we're gonna have to learn how to do that. Like, even if you don't know code, it's pretty easy to learn how to see whether some automation passed or failed, right? So I think one of the skill sets we're gonna have to adapt to and things we're gonna learn and things machine learning are going to help us do our job even better because they're gonna use wider data sets and it's gonna go faster. But then we're gonna have to check and make sure we're using the right data sets. We're gonna have to make sure that the data it gives us back is actually right versus maybe right or percentage of right, you know. I think there is a whole range of things that are coming in technology that are going to help us really do some outstanding, magnificent things. And all you have to do is be curious and be willing to learn. Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.